Once there was, and once there was not. A long time ago, yesterday, or maybe the year before that. There was an old, wise woman. In fact, maybe this story is still happening right now somewhere. Somewhere where there's an old, wise woman who lives on a heath in the forest. An old, wise woman who doesn't live in the village and who the villagers fear. Visit. It is said that everyone pretended to fear this wise woman, but at least half of everyone went to go visit her when their heart was aching because of love or loss, when their bodies were hurting from illness or wound. It is said that this old, wise woman had powers beyond those of an ordinary grandmother. And so often, under the cover of darkness, villagers would slip out of their houses through the night, up the hillside, through the forest, to the old woman's house. This old one had a small cottage made of daub and wattle, and a flock of geese whom she loved like they were her own children. But because she lived in forest and heath, she had no grass for the geese, and nothing much to eat. And so every day she walked down through the forest, down the hill to the edge of the village, to the meadows, and she gathered grass for her geese, and apples and pears from the forgotten orchards. And there would be baskets sometimes of bread, or sausages, or cheeses that the villagers had made and left there as a thank you for her help and support and her healing. And this old wise one could carry huge bundles. One wouldn't think it was possible for this ancient one to carry so much up and down and up, home again. And when she saw the villagers on her path, down the mountain, down the hill, she would greet them kindly. Hello. A beautiful day, isn't it? It's wonderful to see you. And because everyone was supposed to be afraid of her, they would look the other way, they would go the other way, they would whisper under their breath about the witch, and that she had claws under her gloves, and sharp teeth in her mouth for eating children. Well, one day, she encountered a beautiful young man whom she had never seen before, and he was from a neighboring kingdom. And so he didn't know who this old wise woman was, and so he greeted her. Hello, grandmother. How are you today? Oh, my son, she said, I'm just fine. It's such a beautiful day, isn't it? I've gathered grass here for my geese, and a basket of apples, and a basket of pears. And now I just have to begin the long walk home. You know, every day I come down to gather grass for my geese, and what meager food I can find, and then I have to go the long walk home. Said the young man, feeling quite proud and strong and young. Well, grandmother, I will help you. Oh, that would be so wonderful. Oh, would you possibly carry this bundle of grass and this basket of apples and this other basket of pears? It would be so kind of you. It's just, I'm sure for your young legs it wouldn't be such a long walk for you, but for me it's such a long walk home. So the young lad put the bundle of grass on his back, and it truly was quite heavy. And she brought the basket of apples and hooked it onto one arm, and she brought the basket of pears and hooked it onto the other arm, and he kind of staggered under the weight and couldn't believe that this old ancient grandmother could walk with all of this weight every day. And they set off. The first part was quite flat, and they talked. She said, it's so kind of you. It's only about an hour up the path. At that, the nice, beautiful, strong young man paled a bit when he heard that he still had an hour to go. And then the path began to steepen as he began to walk up the hill. And suddenly the apples and the pears felt like they were lead, and the grass bundle on his back felt like it was made of iron. And he got slower and slower and slower until he couldn't walk anymore. Oh, young sir, said the old wise one, the trickstery one. Come now, no one's going to take those baskets from you now. Keep going. He did try to set them down, but he literally could not get them off of his arms. And because standing there for the rest of his life was also not an option, he started to walk again. And walked and walked and walked. And when he showed signs of slowing, the old one grabbed some nettle from the side of the road and began to switch him and switch his legs and calves with the stinging nettle. And she cackled. It's not farther! It's not farther than you think! He sweat and his heart raced, and he was exhausted. But he could see the light at the top of the hill, through the trees, arriving at the heath. He just had a little while more to go. He could see his goal. And just as he began to have a glimmer of hope in his heart, the old one took a spring, a huge jump, and landed on the bundle of grass on his back. And crawling, with buckling knees, he finally, step by step, arrived at the hut and fell on his face. The old one slid off of his back, took the basket of apples and the basket of pears from him, took the bundle of grass off of his back, and helped him stand. Now, sir. Now. It was difficult, of course, but you didn't die. You're okay. Sit down before my house here and have a little rest. And as she walked with him the last few steps, a maid came out of the house. The goose maid, her daughter. The young, beautiful man in his exhausted state took one look at her and shuddered. He couldn't hide it. He was too tired. She was the ugliest creature he had ever seen in his entire life. "Oh, mother," said the girl. "Oh, mother," said the maiden. "You took so long, much longer than you usually do. Are you all right?" "Oh, no problem. This kind, young, beautiful man helped me. We were laughing and cracking jokes and just having such a grand old time that didn't even notice how long the time had gone by." And she went in on the threshold, saying to the young man, "I will make this worth your while. You have no need for money, and you have no need for gold and riches. You are well off, I can see that. I will bring you a treasure, the likes of which you have never seen before." And she disappeared into the house, calling her daughter, "Come! You mustn't let that young, beautiful man fall in love with you." And the young man felt the warm sun on his body and the cool breeze on his face. And he heard the trickling of the small stream that went by the house, and the happy clucking of the geese, and let his body go into sleep and dream. He saw in his dream a grieving queen and a king with a stone heart. And the sound of the flowing water followed him into his dream. "Wake up!" called the old woman. "Wake up, dearie!" And and she handed him a small book, a small box, a tiny little box that fit in the palm of his hand, that was made out of a single emerald. It had a hinge that was cleverly hidden, so that it was not able to be seen from the outside. "Now don't open that here," said the old one. "Put it in your pocket, you'll know what to do with it. Now be on your way, you can't stay here." And so the young man left, feeling quite refreshed after his nap on the bench in front of the little cottage. And he began to walk through the forest. He began to walk on the same path he had taken to arrive at the cottage. He began to walk where he had come from, except he couldn't find his way. 3 days and 3 nights he wandered. 3 days and 3 nights he wandered in the forest. And during those days and nights, he dreamed always of the grieving queen and the king with the heart of stone. "3 days and 3 nights he walked and slept. And always he had this nagging sense that the forest was showing him the way, although he had no idea where he was going. But on the 4th morning, as the sun rose and dawn broke through sunlight, through the trunks of the trees, touching his face and waking him up, he walked out of the forest into a different kingdom, a different realm altogether. And he entered the town and saw there was a castle there, and something knocked at his heart. And so he made his way there. And when he had arrived and knocked at the door and was let in, he told the doorman that he had a gift for the queen, not knowing until that moment that he would give the queen this small emerald, beautifully carved box. And he was led into their chamber, and he knelt down on one knee and offered the small emerald box to the queen. She took it graciously, and it opened in her hands. She took one look at the contents of the box and fainted straight away. The king, outraged, not knowing what she had seen, ordered the guards to take the young man and put him into the prison for having offended his wife. But as he was being hauled off to the dungeons, the queen awoke and saw the young man being taken away and said, "Stop! I must speak with this one, the bearer of this small box, alone." And so everyone left the room, including the king. And the queen asked, "Where did you get this?" And before the young man could answer, the queen began to cry. And he recognized her as the grieving queen from his visions. "Imagine," she said, "imagine my surprise, imagine my surprise. I had 3 daughters, now I have 2. Imagine my surprise. I had 3 daughters. "3 years ago, my husband, the king, decided it was time for him to split up his lands between his daughters. not knowing how long he would live and not wanting conflict after his death. He wanted to have everything prepared, and so he gathered his daughters together. Being a proud man, he invited the entire court to witness. And they came in, the oldest, and the middle daughters, and the youngest. Oh, the youngest was by far the most beautiful. Ruby lips and dark raven hair. But she shone. She had some kind of a light shining from her. And she was given a gift. Not only was she sweet and beautiful, beyond compare, but she also was blessed that when she wept not tears. She wept not tears, but jewels and pearls. My husband, the king, he said to his daughters, "Tell me, prove to me how much you love me. The one who loves me the most will be rewarded the most handsomely." So the oldest said, "I love my father like all of the gold in the world." And the middle daughter said, "I love my father like all of the silks and beautiful, exquisite dresses in the world." And the third daughter, my third precious, pure-hearted daughter, said nothing. And when the king asked her to say something, she couldn't. She said, "Father, I can't put it into words how much I love you." He said, "You must." And so she thought and thought. And then she said to her father, "The most exquisite food has no taste and does not please me without salt. And so I love my father like salt." "Like salt? Like salt," he said. "If you love me like salt, you will be repaid in salt." And he divided his kingdom between the two older daughters and had a bag of salt tied to the back of my youngest child and had her guided out of the city and banished from our kingdom. And she wept, and her tears covered the streets in jewels and pearls. And the people who loved her gathered up the pearls and the jewels and wept their own tears with her to see her go. A little while later, the king regretted his actions and sent out a search party for her. For months they looked, all day and all night, but she was not to be found. I prayed that she would be living somewhere with some loving family who had taken her in, or maybe even found a cave to live in if she had to by herself. I prayed and prayed that she was still alive. So imagine, kind sir, imagine my surprise when I opened this box, and inside of it was a pearl such as my daughter's eyes gave forth when she wept. Where did you get this? And now the young man told the story of the old woman and the very unfair weight that he had to carry up the mountain, and how she whipped him with stinging nettle on his calves, and how there was no princess when he arrived at the cottage. There was but an old woman and her ugly, ugly daughter. No one like the queen had described. The king was brought back in and was told the story, and they decided to go with the young man to the old woman's house. They set out at once. On foot, just the three of them, they began to walk through the forest. And again it seemed to the young man that the forest showed him the way. But he couldn't really be sure about it. It was just a hunch he had. As night fell, the two parties, the king and queen and the young man, were separated. And so they walked separately through the night, all through the night, and into the next day, uphill. The king and queen not knowing where they were going, but knowing that the old wise woman lived up the mountain. And the young man, the beautiful young man, following whoever it was that was guiding him. Meanwhile, the old woman sat at her spindle spinning as dusk was falling, and her daughter, the goose girl, came as the geese were flocking home. She came in the house, the goose maid took up her own spinning wheel, and they sat together companionably in silence for a few hours spinning. And as it was dark, whoo-hoo, whoo-hoo, whoo-hoo. "My daughter," said the old one, "put away your spinning now. It is time for you to do your work." And so the goose girl cleared up her spinning and left the cottage and walked, following the little stream up to its source. It was close to full moon, and as the moon came out, she arrived at the spring. She went over to it and peeled the skin off of her face like a mask, revealing her true face beneath. And she washed her face in the spring, and she washed this skin mask.
Recording in progress.
Arriving at the spring, she pulled off a second skin like a mask. And as she did, her age and her ugliness was peeled away to reveal an 18-year-old girl with raven black hair, a light shining from her to match the moon. And she washed her face in the spring water, and she washed the skin in the spring water and laid it out on the grass to be bleached in the moonlight. And she began to weep. She began to weep pearls and jewels. And suddenly, a branch cracked above her. She grabbed her skin, put it on her face, and as a cloud covered the moon, she took off like a deer over the meadows and back to the cottage. Arriving back, she threw open the door and was about to tell the old one everything. But the old one said, "I know what happened. Have you forgotten? 3 years ago today you came to my cottage. Our time together is at an end." "Oh, mother," said the girl. "Oh, mother, please don't send me away. I have nowhere to go." "No, you will be taken care of," she said. "Now go and put on the dress you were wearing the day you arrived and take off the skin from your face. All must be clean and prepared before I go." And she took up a broom and began to sweep and clean the cottage. The king and the queen and the young man had been separated, and each had walked all day long. And as the dusk was nearing, the young man saw a great giant oak tree and decided to climb up in the tree and spend the night there. Imagine his surprise when in the moonlight he saw a figure coming across the meadow. Just by the way she walked, he could tell that it was the goose girl. "Aha," he said, "one of the witches. She can lead me back to the cottage, and I will wait there for the king and queen." And just as he was about to begin climbing down the oak tree in order to meet her, she arrived at the spring and peeled off the second skin, peeled off the mask that she had been wearing, and revealed her raven hair and the shining light that glowed from her. And he knew it was the princess. And he saw he was right when she began to weep pearls and jewels. And he was so entranced by her beauty and so in love that he leaned closer and closer and closer to get as close of a look at her as he possibly could. And the branch beneath him cracked, and she took off like a deer across the meadow. And he ran down after her, took down the tree, and ran after her as fast as he possibly could, following her back to the cottage. Well, as he crossed the meadow and began to follow the little stream, he saw the king and the queen coming up the hill on the other side. They had seen the light of the cottage and were looking for a place to spend the night. And they met outside of the cottage and looked in the window. And they saw the old woman sitting there and spinning. Just quietly. But they saw no goose girl and they saw no princess. Finally, one of them, I don't know which one, got up the courage to knock on the window. The old woman rose and came to the door and said, "Come, I've been expecting you," and invited them in. But as they arrived, she said to the king and the queen, "You could have saved yourselves this walk and all of the heartache. Your daughter has lived with me these 3 long years, and I have taught her all I can, and she has served me well and cared for the geese. and you have suffered and grieved, and your heart has almost turned to stone. You have had punishment enough. It is now time to find your joy again. Come out, my daughter, she called to the girl, who came out of the room, wearing the dress she had worn the day she was sent from her father's palace. And she fell on their necks, and they fell into each other's arms, and all three wept. For joy and love. And then she saw the young man, and she turned beet red. And she didn't really know why. And he turned beet red, and he knew that he was in love. But my daughter, said the king, I have nothing to give you. I've given everything to your sisters, and there's nothing left. Shh, no worries, said the old one. No worries. I have saved all of the tears that she has wept in her grief at losing you. They are fine as the pearls in the sea, and will keep her well off for the rest of her life. And I give her this little cottage as payment for her services. And with that, the old one was gone, and the geese with her. And the cottage turned into a great palace, with servants going here and there, and a great feast was laid out. Now, the one I heard this story from, she partly lost her memory, and she'd forgotten the rest, so I can't tell you how it ends. But maybe the two were married. And maybe the geese were girls and boys. Who became servants in the palace. And maybe they lived happily ever after. But who knows?